look at wars. We don't look at...
No. Is that the right way to do it?
Let me answer the question.
Okay.
When we decide whether or not we're sending our young people into harm's way, we should obey the Constitution.
Buckle up, everyone. Because this episode of The View has gone from fiery to absolutely explosive. Senator Rand Paul stepped into the lion's den and delivered one of the most jaw-dropping interviews in recent history. From Whoopi Goldberg's dramatic outburst to Joy Behar's constant interruptions. This wasn't just television. It was a battle of ideologies live on air. But what really happened when Rand Paul dropped truth bombs left and right? Why did Whoopi Goldberg literally scream and end the show? Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Before we dive into the chaos, do us a huge favor. Smash that like button and hit subscribe. For more of the boldest commentary on moments like these. Did you subscribe? Awesome. Let's get into it. Alright, let's set the stage. Senator Rand Paul stepped into the lion's den. The View. Now, if you've watched even a single episode, you know The View doesn't exactly scream, "Welcome to conservatives." And on this particular day, they were sharpening their claws. Rand wasn't there to play nice, though. He had a mission. To discuss his book, The Case Against Socialism, and expose what he calls the dangerous realities behind this trending political ideology. Same people who always say, stay at war, stay at war, stay at war. It has not helped us. We've been in Afghanistan for 19 years. The same people complaining about this. The Chinese, Lindsey Graham. You know what they say about Afghanistan? It would be precipitous to leave. We've been there 19 years. There's no mission, and I'm not saying I don't want to play this war. I'm out there as I want to play that. Breaking our word as Americans of breaking our words to our allies of having people who risk their lives who've been there for years. And what message does that send internationally to other allies if we abandon them? I think the only duty we owe and the only oath I take is to the Constitution. I didn't promise to take the country to war. I promised not to take the country to war. So did President Trump. And I thought, that's so. That was the Constitution says, protecting you from enemies, foreign and domestic. And there's many of us who feel that this puts us in greater danger because of what it means vis-a-vis ISIS. We don't live, we're not alone on this planet. Right off the bat, the sparks started flying. Rand wasted no time diving into the heart of the issue. Socialism. He laid out how it's often sold as a utopia, promising free stuff for everyone, funded by taxing only the super rich. But Rand, he wasn't buying it, and he wanted everyone to know why. Using Scandinavia as a prime example, he explained the actual cost of these so-called free benefits. Sky-high taxes on the working class and middle class. For instance, did you know that in Denmark, a nation often romanticized by socialists, the working class pays a 25% sales tax and faces income tax rates as high as 60%? Not to mention, their corporate taxes are lower than ours, completely contradicting Bernie Sanders' claims. Rand broke it all down. The math simply doesn't add up, and he argued that Bernie's promises are nothing more than misleading sound bites. But, as expected, Joy Behar and Sunny Hostin weren't going to sit quietly and let Rand dominate the conversation. Oh no. They came armed with their own talking points, and the interruptions began almost immediately. Joy, in classic fashion, accused the US of already having massive taxes without providing any of the supposed benefits socialism offers, implying that Rand's critiques were off base. And let's not forget Sunny, who couldn't resist throwing in a jab about Donald Trump not paying income taxes. A statement that had absolutely nothing to do with the discussion at hand. But Rand, cool as a cucumber, he calmly pointed out that America's tax system is far more progressive than those in socialist countries, with the top 1% already shouldering 40% of the tax burden. As Rand dismantled their arguments one by one, it became clear that The View wasn't prepared for someone who could back up his claims with facts. But, of course, the interruptions and attempts to derail continued. And for anyone watching, the tension in the room was palpable. This segment set the tone for the entire interview. A battle of ideologies, facts versus emotions, and Rand Paul standing firm in the face of a hostile crowd. And believe me, things only got more heated from here. So, what do you think so far? Is socialism a dream worth chasing, or a financial nightmare waiting to happen? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. His wanting to pull troops out of Syria, and everyone saying, if we do that, we're abandoning the Kurds. That's not a good idea. And a lot of folks are saying it crossed the line with a bad decision, but you don't say that. Why? You know, one of the things I've always supported about President Trump is actually one of the things I liked about President Obama, that we said we were overextended, that the Iraq war was a mistake. I think it's one of the reasons President Obama beat Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton had supported the Iraq war. I still think the Iraq war, regime change in the Middle East, and these wars are senseless. So does President Trump. He doesn't want to get us involved in another Iraq war in Syria. If anything, Syria is more complicated. And here's where things went from tense to downright explosive. The discussion shifted to Venezuela. Rand Paul made his case clear. Venezuela's tragic collapse wasn't some random accident. According to him, it was the direct result of socialism in action. He outlined how the people of Venezuela initially voted for socialism, lured in by promises of equality and prosperity, only to watch their country spiral into economic ruin, corruption, and unimaginable suffering under the regimes of Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro. But before Rand could even finish his thought, Sunny Houston swooped in, ready to challenge him. Maduro isn't a socialist, she declared. He's just a corrupt thug. Sunny's argument? That Venezuela's failures had nothing to do with socialism as a system, and everything to do with bad leadership. Now, let's pause for a second. What Sunny completely ignored was Rand's key point. Socialism laid the groundwork for the power grabs and tyranny that followed. But try as he might to explain, Rand could barely get a word in edgewise. "Let me finish," Rand exclaimed, trying to regain control of the conversation. And yet, Sunny wasn't having it. Every time he attempted to highlight how socialist policies dismantled Venezuela's economy and gave rise to authoritarianism, she interrupted. It was like watching a verbal tug-of-war, with Rand trying to maintain his composure while Sunny kept throwing curveballs. And just when you thought it couldn't get more chaotic, Whoopi Goldberg jumped in. With her signature side-eye and dismissive tone, she chimed in to steer the conversation away from Rand's arguments. It wasn't just an interruption. It was an attempt to completely shut down the discussion. The entire segment quickly devolved into a shouting match, with Rand valiantly trying to make his points while Sunny and Whoopi tag-teamed to drown him out. Became painfully obvious that they weren't interested in hearing Rand's perspective. They were more focused on defending their narrative. But here's the thing. Rand didn't back down. Despite the interruptions, dismissive comments, and attempts to twist his words, he stood firm. He doubled down on his argument that socialism, no matter how it's packaged, often leads to the same outcomes: economic collapse and authoritarian rule. This wasn't just a debate about Venezuela. It was a battle of ideologies. And for viewers at home, it was a front-row seat to just how unwilling the View's hosts were to have a real, balanced conversation. What do you think? Does Rand have a point about socialism's role in Venezuela's downfall? Or is Sunny right to blame Maduro alone? Let us know in the comments. The next segment brought the fireworks as Rand Paul took the gloves off and went straight for the panel's hypocrisy. He didn't just defend his stance. He exposed how selectively the View's hosts criticize policies depending on who's in power. And let's just say, the audience was here for it. Rand wasted no time highlighting the double standards. He reminded everyone that when President Trump worked to reduce U.S. military involvement overseas, the panel criticized him relentlessly. But when President Obama took similar actions, suddenly, the silence was deafening. The tipping point. When Rand boldly stated, "If Obama had pulled troops out, you'd have celebrated it. But because Trump did it, suddenly, it's a crime." The crowd went wild, erupting in applause. But that didn't sit well with Whoopi Goldberg, who gave the audience one of her classic death glares. You could practically feel the tension rippling through the studio. Joy Behar wasn't about to let Rand steal the spotlight. She immediately jumped in, accusing him of oversimplifying complex geopolitical issues, particularly in Syria and Afghanistan. But Rand was ready for her. He came armed with historical facts, and he wasn't holding back. He broke it down. When we removed Saddam Hussein, we got ISIS. When we removed Gaddafi, we got chaos in Libya. Do you really think repeating these mistakes will bring peace? His argument cut straight to the heart of America's troubled foreign policy track record. Decades of regime changes that often created more problems than they solved. You and fighting with you, and 24 hours, somebody wakes up and says, "Up, we're out." Is that the right way to do this? I think the way we look at wars, we don't look at it. Oh, no. Is that the right way to do the question? Okay. When we decide whether or not we're sending our young people into harm's way, we should obey the Constitution, which says we should declare war and put them in a war theater. But let me finish, okay? Here's the thing about it, is if you ask these people, Lindsey Graham, the Cheney war, and all these warmongers that want to stay at war forever, who are we going to declare war on? They don't know who. We're going to declare war on Turkey or allies. We free Syria war ally. In the middle, it's like walking out. It should never be there in the first place. That's not the question. That's all. The left, I'd agree with where it's hidden there for years. For so many years, the left agreed with me. I am neither left nor right. I'm just American. I want to know, should we be taking, should we be walking out? The panel tried to push back, but Rand's logic was undeniable. He painted a clear picture of how these interventions have historically led to power vacuums, emboldened terrorist groups, and left regions in shambles. And when Joy attempted to derail his point by bringing up unrelated criticisms of Trump, Rand calmly redirected the conversation back to the facts. Meanwhile, Whoopi was visibly irritated, interrupting Rand multiple times in a desperate attempt to regain control of the discussion. But Rand stood his ground. "The truth is," he said, "endless wars don't make us safer. They put our soldiers in harm's way with no clear mission or exit strategy." The tension reached a boiling point, with the audience clapping and cheering for Rand's blunt, no-nonsense approach. For viewers at home, it was a masterclass in how to dismantle bad faith arguments with facts and clarity. What do you think? Was Rand Paul right to call out the View's hypocrisy on foreign policy? Or do you think the panel had valid points? Let us know in the comments below. The breaking point of the episode arrived when the conversation turned to U.S. alliances and military strategy. Rand Paul, always the constitutionalist, argued that decisions about war should strictly follow the Constitution, requiring a formal declaration from Congress. For Rand, this wasn't about politics. It was about honoring the process set forth by America's founding principles. But this logical approach struck a nerve with Whoopi Goldberg. She interrupted him almost immediately, accusing him of ignoring the humanitarian crisis faced by Kurdish allies. Her voice rising, she asked, "So we're just supposed to abandon them? Leave them to die?" The emotion in her voice was palpable, but so was her unwillingness to let Rand fully explain his position. Rand, maintaining his composure, responded with what he believed was a critical point. "The only oath I took is to the Constitution." He emphasized that sending troops into harm's way without a clear mission or congressional approval not only undermines democracy, but also endangers American lives. But Whoopi wasn't having it. She continued to interject, her frustration boiling over as Rand attempted to make his case. "We're not talking about some abstract idea," she exclaimed. "We're talking about real people, real lives." As Rand tried to explain how prolonged military interventions often lead to more instability and suffering, Whoopi raised her voice further, cutting him off mid-sentence. The tension in the room was undeniable. Rand attempted to steer the discussion back to the core issue of constitutional responsibility, but the atmosphere was already too heated. Whoopi, visibly flustered and clearly done with the exchange, threw her hands in the air and shouted, "We're done here." The abrupt ending left the audience in stunned silence, with audible gasps filling the studio. The show quickly cut to a commercial break, but the chaos of the moment lingered in the air. It was one of those rare unscripted TV moments where even The View couldn't keep its composure. This segment highlighted a fundamental clash, not just between Rand Paul and Whoopi Goldberg, but between differing worldviews. Rand's emphasis on constitutional restraint and a clear exit strategy clashed with Whoopi's emotionally charged plea for humanitarian action. So, what do you think? Was Rand Paul right to prioritize the Constitution in decisions about war? Or do you side with Whoopi's call for humanitarian intervention? The aftermath of Rand Paul's appearance on The View was nothing short of explosive. Social media platforms were flooded with reactions, with clips of the fiery exchange quickly going viral. Both sides of the political spectrum weighed in, with supporters of Rand Paul applauding his composure, and critics accusing him of being dismissive. One Twitter user captured the sentiment of many by saying, "Rand Paul just walked into The View and exposed their hypocrisy on live TV. This is why they fear him." Another wrote, "Whoopi yelling and shutting down the show is peak irony. Isn't this the show that prides itself on fostering dialogue?" Meanwhile, fans of The View defended the panel's reaction, arguing that Rand Paul was overly combative and refused to acknowledge the complexities of the issues. The division was stark, with the heated debate reigniting broader conversations about media bias and political discourse. This wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a snapshot of the challenges facing modern political discussions. Rand Paul's appearance underscored how difficult it is to have meaningful conversations in highly polarized environments. The tension between Whoopi Goldberg and Rand wasn't just about Syria or socialism. It symbolized the broader cultural divide gripping the nation. The segment also reignited debates about media bias. Shows like The View claim to provide a platform for diverse perspectives. But is it fair for a predominantly liberal panel to consistently outnumber and outtalk conservative guests? Many are asking if it's time for mainstream shows to re-examine their format and include more balanced, constructive dialogue. This moment highlighted the growing mistrust between political ideologies, leaving viewers to question whether bridging the divide is even possible in today's climate. Say what you will about Rand Paul, but his appearance on The View was nothing short of memorable. Whether you agree with his politics or not, one thing is certain: he held his ground, exposed inconsistencies, and forced the panel to confront their own biases. And let's not forget Whoopi Goldberg's dramatic decision to end the segment. It only amplified the moment's intensity. But now, it's your turn to weigh in. Do you think Rand Paul made valid points, or did the panel have a right to push back? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And before you go, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more fiery debates, bold takes, and viral moments. Trust me, there's plenty more where this came from. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.